Welcome back to Sports Hop. It's your boy Mack B. Back at it, back in the building, episode 32. Boy, do we got a hot show today for you, and we got a lot of stuff to cover.
We sure do.
A lot of breaking news, Solomon, particularly in the NBA. And we're going to start in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. Shout out to Paul George. Talk about securing the bag. 4-year guaranteed deal, $212 million. That's just a little bit, $53 million a year, just a little pocket change. The Clippers really dropped the ball on this situation. They would not give him a 4-year offer. They maxed out at 3. Paul George saw the writing on the wall, and I'm not mad at him. Quite frankly, I think that he made the best move possible. And Orlando was out of the picture, and Philadelphia basically knew that they had basically all the shots at getting Paul George. Definitely an exciting move for the Sixers. You've already got Embiid over there. You've got Tyrese Maxey, who secured his own deal. We'll get to that in a minute.
That guy's going to be even better next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you add Eric Gordon to the fold. He signs a 1-year deal. He's a veteran who can shoot the ball and stretch the floor. But the Sixers definitely made some power moves. I'm not mad at them. I like the acquisition of Paul George. Even though he's 34 years of age, he can still play. He can still shoot. He can still get to the rim, and he can defend. He actually had a pretty good postseason, even though the Clippers once again came up short in the NBA playoffs. But Philadelphia, in my book, is actually second best odds in the East to come out of the East in terms of getting to the NBA Finals. I still think Boston has the edge, and I'm going to put them up at the top, and we'll get to the Celtics momentarily. But back to Philly, Solomon, a 4-year deal for George, $212 million. The Sixers have made some good moves, particularly this offseason. My biggest wild card with the Sixers is 2 things, right? Number 1, can Joel Embiid stay healthy for a full season, including the playoffs? Because he always seems to get injured. Shout out to him. No, he basically was playing in that Knicks series on one leg, and he still balled out.
Right.
So can Embiid stay healthy? And then number 2, everybody's excited, as you should be, but keep in mind, this core nucleus of players have never been on the floor together. They've never played together. Paul George has never played with Embiid, through a regular season of 82 games. He's never played with Tyrese Maxey. He's never played with Eric Gordon for that extended amount of time. So at the end of the day, chemistry matters, coaching matters. I think they're in good hands back in Philly, but I think it remains to be seen how this first year is going to play out, particularly with a whole new roster. They still have some key pieces that are coming back, but you're adding acquisitions of Paul George. You're adding Eric Gordon. You still got Maxey. You still got Embiid. You still have Oubre. So they still have some good players, but it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds in the East. What are your thoughts on the move that Philly did with acquiring Paul George?
Well, I think it's a good move. I mean, you hear the rumors that Paul George wasn't super happy with the way they played once James Harden got in. And I think he expressed that to management. And so when he hears they offer, James Harden a new 2-year deal, all of a sudden it's sort of like the writing on the wall, sort of like a slap in the face to him. So he's like, okay, I'm out. I look at it like this. He's looking for the team that is probably, gives him the best chance to win a chip. Obviously, he's not going to go to Boston, but, going into Philadelphia with a very strong center. And keep in mind, Embiid played very, very well this year. He's over 34 points per game before he got that injury.
Yeah.
So if he can stay healthy, and that was a freak injury, that's not one of those I'm always hurt. It's all these little things all year. I think he fared pretty well this year. So with him there, and then you got Eric Gordon, who is just the consummate veteran.
Can shoot the ball well.
Skilled sharpshooter. He fits in everywhere. He just sort of integrates himself. He finds his own spot. He makes his own offense.
Yeah.
So he's a great guy to have in. So with Paul George coming in already with established scorer like Tyrese Maxey at the point, he can fit in well as well, and at the same time take some pressure off of Embiid of constantly having to go out there and sort of be the the juggernaut that just keeps things moving. So I'm excited about it. Now that being said, I know you're talking about you think they're second coming out of the East. I'm still looking at New York. New York is going to be my pick coming out of the East, second behind Boston. That's what I think.
Oh, I love it. I love your take. We shall see how it plays out. And we'll talk about the Knicks as well. But back to Philly. Tyrese Maxey got extended, a 5-year deal, $204 million. Well-deserved from Maxey, particularly how he stepped up in the NBA playoffs and balled out. He was doing his thing. So I like Tyrese Maxey. He's a leader on the floor. He's so dynamic, right? Because he can get to the rim. He can shoot the big-time three-point basket. And under pressure, he has no fear, and he came out of Kentucky, a former Wildcat. He's definitely a beast on the floor. I really love his game. I love what he's been able to bring to the city of brotherly love. They love him back there in Philadelphia. So I think that, Paul George is a nice complementary piece to the Sixers rotation. And then that starting nucleus on the floor, with Paul George and Tyrese Maxey and Embiid. And the Sixers definitely are going to have a really much improved team. The key factor to me is, can they stay healthy, right? Can they avoid the injury bug? We shall see what happens. But on the other side, I got to call out Lawrence Frank. Like, what the hell is going on in Los Angeles with the Clippers? I mean, you offer Harden a 2-year deal at $70 million. Harden has been, up and down and Jekyll and Hyde on the floor. I mean, when he's on, and he can still play and give you about 25, 30 points a game. But there's so many times where he's inconsistent. And I'm just like, wow, are you just barely rolling out of bed and getting to the arena, not even warming up? Because his game at times has looked really poor in key situations. And I'm talking about playoff moments and things of that nature when the game's on the line. He seems disconnected at times, Solomon. So he's not the same player. He can still give you maybe 15 to 20 points a game if his head is in the game, right? And that remains to be seen. I personally believe that pissed off Paul George. That was the writing on the wall. He's like, it's time to bounce and get up out of here.
Right.
I know he's a Cali native. He's an LA guy. But, not only are you getting a bigger bag, you're getting a better team, from an organizational aspect where you have a better chance to capture a ring, because Paul George is a great player. He's never won a ring. I think he's worthy of one. I think he can still play at a high level. But the Clippers, to me, going into 2024, and I love me some Steve Ballmer. I love that owner. He's one of the most passionate, hardworking owners in professional sports. I love his enthusiasm. I love his energy. I love his swag that he brings to the organization. They're moving into the Intuit Dome out there in Inglewood, but it's not going to be as welcoming of an experience when you lose one of your superstars. You don't have anybody that you essentially replaced for Paul George. I mean, Kawhi Leonard, he's one of the most quietest, like soft-spoken superstars you've ever met, in terms of playing on a high level. But the question is, how often is he going to be suiting up for you, right? Because he gets hurt all the time. You can't rely on Kawhi Leonard. He's missed over 50% of the games in his Clipper career. So the Clippers can't really rely on Leonard, as great of a player as he is. You can't rely on him to always be there for you night in and night out, right? So I don't know what Lawrence Frank is doing. I think that Steve Ballmer needs to reevaluate the whole organizational picture. I would give them a facelift very fast and make some abrupt changes. What are your thoughts on what the Clippers are doing and where they're headed? I know you spoke on Harden there briefly.
Yeah.
But talk to me about the Kawhi Leonard situation, and what do you think about it?
Well, it's unfortunate because the whole point of having that big three was to keep Kawhi Leonard healthy, to not have him have to be all, everything and anything at any point on the floor. And, he hasn't been able to maintain his health. And despite all of the star power they had, I thought at one point, they were just sort of collecting names not really thinking about how these guys are going to fit together, sort of trusting their professionalism. But you're dealing with a lot of egos there. I mean, Paul George came from a place where he was the man, right? And frankly, as far as James Harden is concerned, me personally, I stopped believing in him when he left Houston. I mean, at that point, the game sort of favored him. The rules favored him. They've done some things that have sort of changed that a bit, called some of those fouls that he would always get. And he just, even in Brooklyn, he just always looked out of shape. He looked like you said, he looked like he didn't really care much what was going on with the game. And so, he was just one of these guys that, he might score 20, he might score 13, he might, he was just never consistently saying, I'm going to take this game over, I'm going to will my team to win. I think after that, he just sort of lost it, and he's just sort of like going through the motions now. So, that being said, paying him for 2 additional years, I wasn't very excited about the move. I'm not a Clippers fan. In fact, us here in LA, we think there are no such thing as Clippers fans. So don't beat me up if you heard that. I thought they should have moved on from him. I would have definitely tried to keep Paul George. Now, granted, you get rid of a huge salary, which means you can bring in some pieces around him. And the Clippers have continued to make some moves today. So, they're going to put a team together. I mean, they've got a great coach, but then the one thing you can't ever forget about is that Clippers curse, man. I mean, think about how many great players they've had over the years. I mean, just, from Blake to Chris Paul to DeAndre Jordan, all those years. And they haven't been able to move past, what was it, second round, I believe?
They made it to the Western Conference Finals one time. Right.
And they call it the Clippers curse. So hopefully they'll have more luck in the new Intuit Dome. I just don't know why they decided to build it in the City of Champions, which is named for, guess who? The Lakers.
Right. No cap. I feel you on that. We're going to shift gears and head down to Texas to the Lone Star State. Klay Thompson, former Warrior, the Splash Brothers are no more. We definitely said a few weeks back that Klay was on the move through my sources around the league. No surprise there that he left Golden State. The Lakers tried to get him. It didn't work out. LeBron was one of the first people to call him when free agency officially started at 6 o'clock Eastern time yesterday. But nonetheless, Klay Thompson's found a new home in Dallas with the Mavs. He signs a 3-year deal, $50 million, three-year deal. Definitely Klay can still play at a high level. One of the biggest influences for him, securing the bag down there in Texas. There's no state tax. And I've been saying this for years. That goes a long, long way, especially when you're making the kind of money that these athletes are making. If you're a Cowboy, you're a Spur, you're a Houston Rocket, you're a Houston Texan, you're a Dallas Maverick. You love playing in Texas, right? Because there is no state tax. You keep more money in instead of filtering more money out. It's a 3-year deal. Klay Thompson can still play at a high level. We all know that he's battled back through some devastating injuries, a knee injury, a torn Achilles. Klay has worked hard to come back. Last year, he was basically regulated to the bench initially after being in the starting lineup, and contract talks came to a stalemate last summer. That left a bad taste in his mouth, and I didn't think he was happy for most of the season in Golden State. That's also what I've been hearing through my sources. But nonetheless, shout out to Klay Thompson, who's still one of the greatest shooters of all time in the NBA. He's definitely top 5 in my book. He can pull up and hit you. Remember, this is a man that scored 37 points in one quarter. It's never been done. 37 points, 14 3-pointers, the most in the game in NBA history. He can still make it rain. He still can play with a lot of flavor and a lot of flair. So I think Klay Thompson's got a lot to prove. I love the move by Dallas. They really didn't give up anything for him. He was a free agent. They had room to sign him, despite the Lakers' efforts that came up short. What are your thoughts on the Mavs now, who just lost in the finals to the Celtics? What do you think they're going to do next year in the West now that they added Klay to the roster?
Well, just going back to the Lakers really quick. They lost him because they were trying to give the Warriors back D'Lo, and Warriors said no, and so they couldn't do the sign and trade.
No.
And then of course Klay Thompson came out and said, that tax thing in Texas, made a big deal for him.
Big time.
But I think it's a great move for Klay because if you think about it, that team was in the finals. I mean, they've got all the pieces there. And think about it from his perspective. He went from playing alongside one of the most creative ball handlers to now one of the most dynamic ball handlers, in Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
And so then on top of that, you've got a guy who is just like the Kobe mentality in Luka Doncic. He's out there to play. They've got a great team. And I think, it's a good thing for him. I think he'll be a great fit. I also like the fact that he won't have to come in and be the primary defender. He'll be able to spot up and shoot and do what he does best and play, his excellent level in spurts. So
right.
it's a very good look for them. I see them definitely making waves in the playoffs next year. The West is going to be tough though. So, who knows if they'll get back, but I know they'll be there. They'll be right knocking at the door.
They will be knocking at the door, well said. And speaking of knocking at the door, we're going to stay in Texas. Chris Paul, the wily veteran, shout out to Chris Paul. He's been in the league a long time, still trying to get that championship ring. But I think in this situation, he signs a 1-year, $11 million deal with the Spurs under Greg Popovich, one of the greatest coaches in NBA history. We all love you, Pop. We love your swag. I love the fact that Popovich doesn't bite his tongue, right? Even when he had Tim Duncan playing, he will get in you and get on you. If you're the one messing up and you're at fault, this man has no fear checking his players. I like Popovich as a coach. I think Chris Paul will be a great mentor, particularly for Victor Wembanyama, who was the Rookie of the Year. So Chris Paul's a great floor leader when healthy. He can stretch the floor. He can definitely shoot the ball. Despite him being a little bit undersized, he is a little bit of a liability on defense. But offensively, I like what he adds to the Spurs rotation and their offense, particularly on the pick and roll. So I think there'll be a lot of Lob City going on with Chris Paul and Wembanyama, who can play defensively. He can actually hide a lot of the holes defensively that may be endured with Chris Paul on the floor because he can still be a great rim protector. But I do love San Antonio and the culture down there. They're going to be a team on the rise. I think that they might be able to win 40 games next year, maybe hover around the 500 mark. I don't know if that's good enough to get into the playoffs. It might be good enough to make that tournament, the play-in tournament, to see if you can advance. What are your thoughts on Chris Paul? Basically, he got waived by the Warriors. They didn't want to pick up that $30 million. What are your thoughts on Chris Paul being on the move once again? Because he's been a journeyman the last 5 or 6 years. He bounced around from Phoenix to Golden State.
Right.
Now he's in San Antonio with the Spurs.
Well, I think it's actually a pretty interesting move, and it had me scratching my head a little bit. Chris Paul is 39 years old.
Yeah.
He's never won a championship. He's sort of coming to the end of his tenure.
Yeah.
And he goes to a team with one of the worst records in the league last year. They didn't really make a huge ton of roster moves. They had Victor Wembanyama, and they had a bunch of mediocre players, some guys up and on the rise, Jeremy Sochan, guys like that. So it makes you wonder, number one, why Chris Paul would go there. I mean, I don't think it's for the money, but why would he go there? Number two, what is his impact going to be? Because for all we give him accolades for being point guard and all of that and being a great floor general, he hasn't really been known as someone that makes his teammates better. In fact, he's been sort of called a jerk and things like that, one of the worst teammates to play for, according to Rajon Rondo. But and so it makes you wonder if he is going to be the guy who can bring along a Victor Wembanyama. He's not a center, so what's he going to teach him? So that's what's curious for me, how he's going to fit in, what his role is. I did hear someone say that they're going to put him in there, and if they feel like he's making an impact, they'll reward him by trading him to maybe a contender at the trade deadline or something like that. But it's just a curious thing for me. I don't really see how it benefits him at all in his career and his quest to get a ring, or how it benefits Victor Wembanyama when basically I can play point guard there and get him the ball. So I just don't really see it, but whatever.
Right. I feel you. Get that Spurs jersey ready, man. That would be a sight to see. We're going to pivot to the Oklahoma City Thunder. A shout out to Sam Presti. I mean, one of the best general managers in the league. I just don't understand why the Clippers and the Lakers don't follow suit. Start to pay attention to some of these teams on the come up, because the OKC Thunder are just basically making so many moves. They still got so many first-round picks from that Paul George trade and that Westbrook deal. I mean, they're still stacked with first-round picks pending. But it's a good young team. They got a great roster. They had Isaiah Hartenstein from the Knicks. They basically went up to Oregon, Solomon, and they basically wouldn't allow him to leave. They kind of just held him down and convinced him to sign 3 years, $87 million. It wouldn't be too hard for me to break out the pen and the pad and where do I sign? That's a pretty good deal and a good contract for Hartenstein, who can, rebound. He can give you about 10 points, block a few shots, but he can definitely hit the boards. I think that's going to be something that the Knicks will miss back in New York, because he was a good role player for the Knicks, particularly in the playoffs. I like what he did. He was a scrappy, hardworking player. But he's going to OKC. The Thunder are still a team on the come up. I mean, they were the number 1 seed last year, and now they add Hartenstein to the mix. He can definitely rebound the ball. He can be a rim protector. That's something that the Thunder were lacking, was size. So he was definitely a key added addition to that lineup. I'm excited about what the Thunder are going to do. I mean, they've got so much talent, and you got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and you got Dort, and you got all these great young players. So they're really developing a young nucleus in Oklahoma City. And I'm going to stick to what I said. I believe in the next 2 to 3 years, I would not be surprised if the Thunder go all the way to the finals, and they may even win the whole thing. But getting out of the West, I still believe that they're viable. I think they're a big threat. And I think that other teams, particularly in the Western Conference, you need to give Sam Presti a call. You need to watch what he's doing, because that's the blueprint on how you build a successful franchise in my book. What are your thoughts on what OKC did?
Well,
and where they're going?
I'll tell you what, Isaiah Hartenstein was just part of one of the best defenses in the league last year. I mean, New York would lock people down, and he was a big part of that. Whenever you see him attacking the screen, he doesn't let the guy curl around. He's right up on the screen, right there, making the guy pick up his dribble, pass the ball out. He will be a great addition to the Thunder. He will be a huge loss for New York, I think bigger than they realize. However, Tom Thibodeau is a great coach, a great defensive coach. I'm sure he's got a plan to sort of replace that energy. But, sometimes guys are just really, really good. That being said, I would love to have seen the Thunder get a little bit older. I feel like they still need some veteran presence. I mean, you see how they played during the regular season. I mean, they were beating teams, but then they get to the playoffs. Yeah. And it's a different story. It's a different game. You need that experience. You need people who can show you how to raise playoff intensity. Right now they've got Gordon Hayward, I think, is probably the oldest player there. Yeah. And he hasn't played a lot. Who knows if he'll be there throughout the year anyway. I would love to see them get older. Maybe they'll pick up some veterans as we are head into the season. But there's like you said, they're going to be a team on the rise. I agree with you. I think it'll be 2 or 3 years, because they need to get that experience, and the West is just too tough right now.
Yeah. And part of getting that experience is making a playoff run. And they had a decent run. They did make it to the second round before they came up short against the Mavs. But shout out to Sam Presti. Shout out to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And don't forget, that trade with Chicago and bringing Caruso over to Oklahoma City. I was just going to
say that, yeah.
That's a major move. Giddey, they shipped off Josh Giddey to Chicago. They got Caruso in return. He's got some veteran leadership on the floor, and he's been around the league for a few years. I like his game, so we can't lose sight of that acquisition as well. Now, moving on, shout out to my man, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, getting the bag, headed to Orlando. A 3-year deal, $66 million. I mean, these players are definitely opening up the bank vault. I mean, I can't be mad at them. No state tax in Florida. It wasn't a big surprise to me. It's a major blow to the Nuggets, and we'll get to that in a minute. But nonetheless, KCP is on the move. I love his game. He's a great defender. He can also space the floor. He can pull up and shoot the 3 ball. He's a good outside shooter. I think that makes Orlando even more dangerous coming out of the East, but I still don't think they're on the level of the Knicks, the Celtics, or the Sixers. But Orlando is a team on the rise. I'm not mad at that pickup. I think it's a great move for the Magic, and I can't be upset with KCP leaving the Mile High City and getting the bag down there in Florida. No state tax again. So he's going to be representing the Magic on a 3-year deal. I really like that move. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's a money move for him.
Yeah.
Because, he's already got a championship. He's got a couple, actually.
Yeah, he won one with the Lakers, too.
Yeah, and so looking at that, I mean, he's going to a team that is definitely on the rise. They played solid last year.
Yeah.
Still a very young team. So he's going to go in and provide some veteran leadership, some obviously shooting skills, but I think he's there for the money. Like you said, the tax advantages in Florida.
Yeah.
Year 66. I mean, he's 31 years old, so he understands where he is in his career. And so it's all about now making as much money as you can. So I think it's a good move for him personally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And speaking of some big time moves, we got something coming, boy. And I cannot be mad at this. This was huge. Okay, somebody's calling in. TD Garden, how can I help you? Oh, yeah. Oh, the Brinks truck is outside. Yeah. I got you. Yeah. Jason is on his way, and Derek White is already in the building. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, $440 million between both players. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Tatum signs the biggest contract in NBA history, $314 million for a 5-year deal. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Jason, you're treating next time we go out to eat, right? Yeah. Derek White. Oh, yeah. 4-year deal, $126 million. I love it. I'm not mad at it. Okay. All right. Go ahead and back up the truck. I can see you on the camera now, buddy. Okay. A little bit there to the left. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. We'll see you shortly. Bye. Man, talk about securing the bag, baby. Jason Tatum signs the biggest contract in NBA history, a 5-year deal worth $314 million. That's a whole lot of lettuce on that sandwich, man. I'm telling you, that is a lot of cheese, guap. I mean, dinero, feria. I mean, that's a major, major deal. Well-deserved. Shout out to Jason Tatum. Got his championship ring, captured a title with the Celtics this past season. I think he's earned it. I love what the Celtics are doing. And then you look at Derek White, who was an outstanding complimentary piece. I mean, they don't win the title without Derek White. 4-year deal, $126 million. They extend him on that 4-year deal. Jaylen Brown has already been taken care of. The Celtics are still going to have their nucleus in that championship roster. They didn't really lose anybody vital. They still have all their key players. I really like what Boston is doing. And like I said a few weeks back, I think the Celtics have a chance to go on like a mini dynasty run here. I think in the next 3 to 5 years, I think Boston can run it back. I still think they're my pick coming out of the Eastern Conference. I like what the Knicks have done, as you said earlier, Solomon. However, I still think when healthy, the Celtics have too much depth. I think Kristaps Porzingis, who's going to have surgery during the offseason, he'll come back healthy. You got Derek White. You got all these complimentary players, and you still got Jaylen Brown. You got Jason Tatum. I love what Boston is doing. I love what the organization has done under Brad Stevens. Shout out to Mazzulla, who is an outstanding coach, only 35 years old, getting that ring. So the Celtics open up the Brinks truck, right? They took care of what they needed to do. They handled their business. And I do like the competitive nature in the Northeast, because you got the Sixers saying, hold up now. Pump the brakes, because we got Paul George coming, even though they've never played together. That's a very fascinating roster. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out in Philly. The Knicks are on the come up. They re-signed Anunoby, and they've got, the Villanova 4, right? With all these players formerly playing at Villanova, and Jalen Brunson and all Josh Hart, and you got Mikal Bridges coming in from the Nets. I love what they're doing in New York. I love what Philly's doing, but I still think at the end of the day, the Boston Celtics are the team to beat in the East. And I think they have the best chance of anybody to come out of the East and really come back in the finals and run it back. What are your thoughts on those moves and the money that was paid out by Boston?
Well, one thing is, I know you say, it'd be nice if they went on a dynasty. They have to go on a dynasty. Look at how much money they're spending.
Yeah.
They have the two players who make the most money in NBA history, $304 million and $314 million. Now, granted, it's going to be, divvied up in different ways over those 5 years, but that's just still a lot of money they're committed to. Now you got Derek White, they're committed to there. Now,
right.
So yeah, I definitely think they have all the pieces in place. The only potential caveat is, Al Horford is a year older.
He's coming back.
Yeah, he's coming back, but he's coming back a year older. And then you've got Kristaps Porzingis, who just hasn't managed to stay healthy at all in his entire career. He's always been hurt. He's coming off a major surgery. He's not even going to be there for the first, I guess, couple months of the opening of the season. And so you wonder how he's going to come in, whether it's out of shape, whether, it has to develop more muscle or whatever. But he wasn't a factor in the playoffs. That should tell you something, that they still won without him.
Yeah.
So don't be surprised if, they pick up another big, going into the season, just knowing that they can spell Al Horford and continue to have some size in the middle, because they just don't know if Porzingis will be there.
That's a good point, and that is a good point. Health will definitely play a role on many levels, because that pertains to the Sixers as well. It pertains to the Knicks, who were banged up in the playoffs this past postseason. But I still like Boston. I mean, I'm still putting my money on the Celtics. With now that they got that playoff pedigree, Mazzulla's got that first championship under his belt. You still got Brad Stevens. Interesting, though, it was announced earlier that the Celtics are up for sale after winning that championship, the first one since 2012. So the Boston Celtics ownership group is putting that team on the market. It'll be interesting to see who steps in and becomes the new ownership group. That'll be interesting, as that'll play out over the next few months. So keep it locked with Sports Hop. We'll give you all the latest info regarding the Celtics ownership and where that stands. Speaking of things and where things stand, we're going to go back to the West Coast, to La La Land. Shout out to the Lakers. Okay. They drafted Bronny James with the 55th pick, just like I had indicated and predicted, but it wasn't really a big surprise. Bronny James now joins his dad, the King, LeBron James, as the only father-son duo in NBA history to play together. I do believe that this first season, Bronny probably won't see the floor in a Laker uniform. I think he's going to be in the G League, or at least for part of the season, he's going to be in the G League, and they're going to evaluate his performance and his growth. He's going to play in Summer League, but I am excited, for that move. Shout out to LeBron James, just, being a mentor, a father, just being so pivotal in so many different people's lives on so many different levels. And all the people out there that are hating, stop hating, stop sipping haterade. Nepotism is real, not only in the U.S., but worldwide. Many corporations and venture capitalists and many major companies, Fortune 500 companies, were built on nepotism. Many people that are in a position of power where they can utilize their power and their resources, and they can look after their own. I'm not mad at that. So don't bang on LeBron for doing what he does. He was influential in that move. We all know that. He was influential on the Lakers hiring J.J. Redick as well. So let's just see what happens before we cast judgment on the man, because he is a great role leader, a role model, a great father, and one of the greatest players in NBA history. So Bronny James, 19 years of age, drafted by the Lakers. I'm excited to see his development. J.J. Redick, I think, will be a good mentor for him as well from a coaching perspective, because he was a guard. He could stretch the floor when he played at Duke, and when he played at the Clippers, he could shoot the three ball. I think that Bronny can learn a lot, not just from his dad and the other coaches, but particularly from J.J. Redick as well. What are your thoughts on that move with the Lakers acquiring Bronny with the 55th pick?
Well, yeah, people say it was expected, but you didn't really know what was going to happen. I mean, any
right.
team could have come in at 53 or 54 picked him up and said, hey, Lakers, we know you want him, trade us a 55th pick and say a second round for next year. Somebody could have been strategic in doing that. But, the rumors are, of course, that the agent was calling people.
They were calling people around the league.
Yeah, don't draft him. If so, he'll go to, what was it, Australia or something that they were saying. But, the other knock on him is, his record at USC. Keep in mind, he came off a major cardiac event and surgery and all of that stuff. I mean,
could have lost his life.
I'm sure the coaches at USC were being very careful as well. So it wasn't just a matter of his inability to play. When he did play, he played well. So I think he has NBA pedigree. People can talk all they want that there are other people better. His dad is LeBron James. So what do you think he's doing when he goes home at night? You know what I mean? It's like they're going to be talking basketball. He's going to be getting counsel from one of the best players to ever play the game.
Absolutely.
7. That matters. That matters. Practicing with a guy like that matters. Getting that years of experience matters. So it's going to catapult his learning ability in the game. And I know they say he may play some G League and all that, but don't be surprised when you see some easy teams on the Lakers roster that you don't see him on the bench. Them figuring maybe there's going to be some garbage time and him and LeBron getting on the floor together. That is really the whole point of the thing anyway.
Yeah, and I concur and I agree with you completely because speaking of the Lakers situation, they really did next to nothing. They did get, the first round pick, the 17th pick in the draft, out of Tennessee. He will be an added addition to that roster, but overall, with him and Bronny, the Lakers roster really didn't change. It didn't change much. And the Lakers, despite LeBron wanting to take a pay cut to try to get Klay Thompson to come on, that didn't happen. So I am concerned from an organizational standpoint. Rob Pelinka, he's got to do a better job. The Lakers need to kind of retool their roster because right now, as currently constructed, and I'm a Laker fan, and it hurts to say this, but I got to keep it 100, right? I don't think the Lakers are in a position right now, the way the West is loaded and stacked and all these other changes and players moving around, I don't think the Lakers are on a level where they can compete for a Western Conference position in terms of coming out of the West and going to the finals. They're a playoff caliber team. I think the Lakers can win between 45 to 50 games. But the West is loaded. The West is stacked. I mean, you got Minnesota, who's on the come up. You got the Mavs, who just added Klay. You've got the Thunder. You still got Denver, even though they've fallen off a little bit. So I believe that, the Lakers have got their work cut out for them. But I can't be upset with LeBron and the move in terms of them picking up Bronny, his son. I love it. It's a beautiful story, and I hope it's a beautiful, monumental journey, not only for LeBron, but for his son, who I think can be a star in the league. But nonetheless, I am concerned about the Lakers moving forward. J.J. Redick has no coaching experience on a major level. He knows the X's and O's. He's an analytical guy. I think, after a few years, he can get up under his footing. I think he can be a great coach. I think it's going to be tough going in the first couple years with Redick. What are your thoughts on that? Not only with Redick, but also the fact that the Lakers really haven't done anything to shake up that roster. Well, they got connect with the 17th pick out of Tennessee, but other than that, and Bronny, that's it.
I sort of disagree because, if you think about the roster as it stands, you're right. It hasn't changed from a name point of view, but from a personnel point of view, player availability point of view, it has changed. Because if you look at the players who were hurt last year, Gabe Vincent,
Vanderbilt,
Jared Vanderbilt, and then Christian Wood missed a good amount of time toward the end of the season. There was a couple other guys who got hurt here too. Cam Reddish got hurt. So you basically are coming into the year with all of these players healthy. Now you really get to see what the Lakers thought they would get last year. And so I'm a little more hopeful. The whole thing with JJ Redick, of course, you're saying, okay, well, they must have had a reason for doing it. So we're past that, right? He's the coach now. So now what I'm looking at is he going to be able to get all of these players to play to their strengths now that they're healthy? I think he's got a really talented group to work with. Yeah. And as long as they stay healthy, I think they're going to do a lot better than people think they will.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see how it plays out. That's the beauty of the league. Anything can happen on any given night. I just think the West is just so loaded, so stacked. And don't forget about the Sacramento Kings as well. You know, they had a down year last year, but the Kings are still a threat. They still got a great nucleus and a great roster as well on the floor. They've always given the Lakers issues. So particularly De'Aaron Fox.
Didn't they sweep the Lakers last year? I thought they did.
If they didn't, they came close.
I know. Every time I was watching the games, I just saw the Lakers losing to the Kings every
yeah,
game.
Yeah. And speaking of sliding a little bit, the Nuggets, you know, they literally just won the championship less than 2 years ago. But I'm concerned in the Mile High City, man, because you still got Nikola Jokic, one of the greatest players in the history of the league, definitely top 3 in terms of big men in the league, and he's still got a long ways to go with his playing career. But I definitely am concerned about the direction of the Nuggets because, you know, you lose Bruce Brown, you lose Jeff Green the previous season. You obviously saw that definitely was a heavy weight on the Nuggets when they were in the playoffs trying to make another championship run. You didn't have those key role players coming in and making contributions. Now, KCP, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, he dips out of Denver. He heads to Orlando. So you lose another key piece from that roster, but who are you bringing in to replace? I know they've got Brown, the other guard out of Kansas, who can actually play even a small forward because he's got some height to him, but he can shoot the ball, and I like his game defensively. But, you know, losing KCP definitely hurts Denver. I think the Nuggets are going to be declining a little bit. When you look at what the other teams are doing and adding key pieces, the Nuggets are losing players, and I don't see them making any contributions from an organizational standpoint to better the roster. They still have a decent roster because you got Jamal Murray, you got Nikola Jokic, you still got Gordon. I mean, you still got some great players, Michael Porter Jr. But can they stay healthy? And what kind of contributions are they going to have coming off the bench? So I think the Nuggets are going to take a few steps back. They still will be a playoff team. But I don't think they're a heavy favorite in my book to come out of the West next year. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you. I think there was a little bit of arrogance there in letting KCP go.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you go, well, as long as we have our nucleus, you know, we've got Jokic, we've got Murray, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr. Reggie Jackson is also gone, you know. So now you've got this team with this core, and then you've got just sort of some role players behind them. You know, there was a lot of glue that it takes to win a championship, and they've just sort of let all of their glue go. You know, maybe some salary cap considerations, things like that. I'm not too privy on it, but yeah, I feel like they have taken a step back, and they're going to sort of realize that halfway through the season, you know, when all their guys are playing, you know, 42, 45 minutes a game, and they're not able to pull out wins that they were able to pull out previously.
Yeah, the Nuggets definitely, it'll be interesting to see how that all unfolds, but, you know, shout out to Denver. You know, they did get that title the previous season, so they got their work cut out for them in the West, though. It is loaded. Let's move on. So speaking of moving on, we are going to talk some football, and we're headed to New York. We're headed to New York, and we're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers, you know, veteran in the league, already 40 years old, missing the mandatory minicamp. Solomon, I don't think it was a good move. He's over in Egypt. I don't know what he's doing, if he's riding camels or he's meditating inside some pyramid. I don't know what he's doing or what he was doing over there. And then when he gets back, he's spotted at the UFC event in Vegas. I think it's a big deal. Some people are like, no big deal, not really that vital. To me, because you missed all of last year, you played 4 snaps, didn't even get to throw one pass, and you tore that Achilles. And then you were on the sidelines during your recovery and showing up and being kind of that emotional leader and trying to, you know, elevate the team. I love what he did after he got hurt. But I don't like this version of Aaron. I think it's a level of arrogance. We know that you are great. We know you are a future Hall of Famer, but you still have only one Super Bowl under your belt in almost 20 years of playing in the NFL. So that is a concern to me, particularly with all the talented rosters you've had, with your dominance during the regular season. So I think it's put up or shut up this year for the Jets and Aaron Rodgers. He's got to make some things happen, and I think it starts early. I think he's got to lead by example. So when mandatory mini camp shows and you are a no-show, you are nowhere to be found, and you are fined, but then, it leaks out that you were in Egypt, and then the minute you get back, you're not even back at training camp. You're just in UFC doing what you do, hanging out with Dana White and them boys. So I think it's a big deal. I think you got to lead by example. The Jets are paying you a lot of money to not only win games, but to lead the team. You got to lead by example. I think this was a poor example and bad decisions by Aaron Rodgers, and hopefully it doesn't fester into something even worse down the road. So what are your thoughts on the move by Aaron and his decisions to kind of just not show up and kind of do his own thing?
I don't think it's a big deal. I think you're going to get 2 weeks into the season and people are going to forget about that. Aaron Rodgers,
if they're winning.
Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback, and I think he would have had a great season last year had he not gotten hurt. I mean, he has the ability to make something out of nothing. And think about it. There aren't that many quarterbacks in the history of the league who can do that. So, I rank him at the top in terms of just ability, just raw, flat out ability on the field. So he will be fine. His team knows who he is. These players will want to make sure they're on his page rather than him trying to get on their page. I think they'll be just fine. So I don't see any issue with it. I mean, granted, it makes the news and people need something to talk about. I mean, it's not football season yet. So what else are you going to talk about, right? You got to talk about Aaron Rodgers missing and going to Egypt. For all you know, maybe he was out there doing sand running or pyramid running or something just to get in shape. But I think he'll be fine.
Well, we shall see how it all goes down in New York. Shout out to Robert Saleh and the Jets. We'll see. The AFC East will be interesting nonetheless this season. Speaking of interesting, once again, I got to give a big-time shout-out to Caitlin Clark, rookie sensation. Her and Angel Reese have been lighting up the WNBA. Shout out to Angel Reese, by the way, making history. First time in the WNBA history, she's had a record 10 straight double-doubles in 10 straight games. So it's never been done before. Shout out to Angel Reese and the Sky. The Sky has fallen in Chicago, though, because they're not really winning that many games. They're 6-11. Meanwhile, the Fever are 8-12. They've got a little bit better of a record. Now, they're both playing great, but what are you doing to make your team better? What are you doing in terms of being a complementary piece on the floor? I love what Caitlin Clark has been doing to elevate the Fever, their profile, elevate the WNBA as a whole. But, coming in as a rookie, she hasn't gotten it yet, but there's been 2 or 3 games where she was 1 assist or 1 rebound away from a triple-double. And so I really like what she's been doing through 20 games in the WNBA. I think she's made a greater impact on her team, okay? Not just individually, but on her team. Taking nothing away from Angel Reese, because again, she's had 10 straight games of double-doubles in terms of points and rebounds. The Chicago Sky haven't been winning very many games. The Fever haven't done much better, but they do have a better record. But keep in mind, they've also played 3 more games than the Sky have played. But I do believe that Angel Reese has a bright future in the league. I love what Caitlin Clark is doing. I still think there's a rivalry there. From the LSU and Iowa days, I still think there's a chip on both shoulders. So I love the competitive nature of that. As long as everything is within the confines of the game, right? I'm not a big fan of the dirty fouls or kind of the aggressive play. I think that, again, Caitlin Clark has been a target for many players around the league, but many of them are jealous of her success and her fame. But nonetheless, Caitlin Clark is a great player. Angel Reese is a great player. Shout out to, Aaliyah Boston and all these other players that have been also lighting up the league. But in terms of rookies, those are the 2 front runners. Caitlin Clark, if voting was to go down today, she would be my selection because I think she personifies leadership, competitive nature, a consistency on the floor. I love her overall mindset. She's still got room to grow, but she's definitely not only a great scorer, she can distribute and facilitate and set her teammates up on the assist level to score easy at the rim. What are your thoughts on this Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark matchup in terms of rookie of the year is what I'm referring to.
Rookie of the year. Yeah, of course. I think, you can look at both of them and look at the impact they've made on their teams. And keep in mind, the Indiana Fever, like you said, their record's not so good. They're 8-12, but they are 6-4 in their last 10. And they've been doing significantly better than because they started the season off pretty poorly. They just went, I don't know if they played in Phoenix, but they beat a good Mercury team, an experienced Mercury team with one of the best centers in the game and one of the most experienced point guards in the game. Caitlin Clark personally didn't do super well, but I think she shot 2 for 10 or something like that. But she did distribute the ball well. She did hit some threes, and she held her own against a very good team. And so I agree with you. I think she makes an impact on the game. And if you think about it, I mean, every time the Indiana Fever go anywhere, it's like a home game because the whole crowd, they just cheer when she scores. And I think she's been good for the league overall. And I slowly think the league is starting to understand that. I'm not seeing as much of a rivalry anymore with regard to the whole Angel Reese thing. I think the media is probably stretching that out a little bit more than they could. At the same time, I feel like all of the cheap fouls and stuff are going to go away. I feel like players are starting to respect her and, and see that she's earned her spot, especially when you get hugs from Diana Taurasi and Brittany Griner and, they're wishing her well. I always felt like Diana Taurasi took some unnecessary heat. She didn't really say anything that was bad.
Right.
She basically said, you know what, it's a different level and, there's an adjustment for everybody. She didn't really say anything negative about Caitlin Clark at all. And so I felt like she was sort of unfairly demonized in that whole thing. And, the comments she made after the postgame, I thought those were great. I thought they were gracious. And I think that represented her true sentiment. And so I hopefully that's all put to rest. But yeah, Caitlin Clark's doing well. She's come in hot. Think about it. I mean, she went from playing college, no break, right into the WNBA, right? And
fit right in.
Yeah, and she's 38 minutes, 40 minutes a game, and she's cooking. So I agree. I rookie of the year, yes, I think she would probably be it, but yeah, it'd be a strong second with Angel Reese.
Thank you for watching Sports Hop. Episode 32 is in the books. Don't forget to tap in and follow your boy at Mack B, MACK, as in boy, _, at Sports Hop Media. And shout out to Municipal, by the way. Thank you, Zach and Mark and everybody over at Municipal. Thank you for the gear. Make sure y'all pull up. They do have their first store location in LA. It's actually in Hollywood, 8609 Melrose Avenue in Hollywood. Pull up, or you can go to municipal.com and cop the drip, because the drip is definitely happening, as you can see. So shout out to Municipal. We appreciate the love. You're watching Sports Hop. Keep it locked. Thanks for watching Sports Hop. Subscribe here for all the latest news on hip hop and sports. It's your boy Mack B.